If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, walk. If you have to walk, if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you don't stop. Confucius.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, we're at the point.
There's a videotape that Pat or Damon are going to be running now, the videotape.
Okay,
Just comes in.
Pat, do you have a video to be shown right now?
Yes, I'm going to show it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. At this point, we will present to you, excuse me, Mr. Ramsey. He's going to shed a little light on the remembrance of Martin Luther King. I'm sure he has plenty to share with us, and we appreciate you being here. So would you please come forward? Right here.
Well, good day. This is my first time here, and I'm very honored to be here. I've been associated with the ethical culture in Manhattan to some degree, and I've been to the Phillips School about 8 times in a row with another children's book, but I understand they're not really associated with ethical culture, they use the name. But I knew very little about ethical culture when I first moved to New York, but I'm honored to be here, and my first time in Brooklyn in a long, long time. I was born in Baltimore and grew up in first 9 years in Baltimore. My father's union went on strike. He was a steel worker, and he moved us down to North Carolina. So I spent my first 9 years in Baltimore, my remaining young years in a little town called Roxboro, North Carolina, about 30 miles from Durham and about 18 miles from Danville, Virginia, on a tobacco farm. And so that's where I grew up, working on the farm and doing all that kind of labor, which was quite not always enjoyable, but it was a strong work ethic. That I'm from a family of 8 children, 5 sisters and 3 brothers. But I moved to Atlanta from Durham, North Carolina, and it was before the Olympics that was held down there, and I knew very little about Atlanta. I moved down there. My mother just passed, and I just gone through a divorce, so I was feeling pretty bad, pretty low. So I got down there, and I knew no one there, but I went over to Pascal's Hotel. Mr. Pascal owned a hotel, and he was quite a gentleman, and a lot of the people stayed there during the Jim Crow era, and afterwards they still would stay at his hotel. It was right near the AU campus, and Mr. Pascal hired me as an auditor, and I worked at the airport at night from 11 to 7. Did that for a year, and from after that I went to him and said, you know, I moved to Atlanta to kind of see more of the city, and I'm working, you know, pretty much at night all the time. I'm not able to get out and whatnot. So he wrote me a letter to Atlanta Life. And Atlanta Life Insurance Company at the time was the 2nd largest African American insurance company in the world, behind North Carolina Mutual. And after spending some time there over a year, I went to work for a company called Aflac. You may have seen those commercials. And I was the top agent in that organization. And after a couple of years from that, I remarried, and then I was sent down to work out of Maynard Jackson's office. Maynard Jackson was the first African-American mayor of Atlanta. And from there, I got to meet a lot of people. And one of the people, one gentleman who I met between Atlanta Life and Maynard Jackson's office was a guy named James Orange. Really my first week in Atlanta, I met Minister Orange, and he told me this story about these mules that pulled Dr. King's caisson.
You might want to ask for the slideshow.
Oh, okay. Who's?
Ed has a slideshow.
Okay, sure. The slideshow can start. I think the lady in the back may have known James Orange, and everyone called him, he had a nickname, Leader. And if he had met you, you know, he would give you that same name. He would call you Leader. So it kind of empowered you to feel like a leader. And that's James Orange there. The big guy, he must have been about 6'6", 350 pounds, had a great deep voice, and I understand he could sing. I never heard him sing, but I understand he could sing. But he was, you know, from Alabama, and he was one of the young guards with Dr. King. He wasn't in an inner circle. Him and Jesse Jackson was kind of like on the outer circle. They were like the young Turks. And James Orange was really like security. The picture here you see James Orange in those 4 pictures, but over here you see President Johnson, you see Whitney Young, Dr. King, James Foreman, and I think that's the gentleman from the NAACP. I can't think of his last name right now. Roy Wilkins, exactly. And so that was kind of called the Big Six, I think, during that period. So the next picture, please. This is Jimmy Lee Jackson, and Jimmy Lee Jackson was from Marion, Alabama, and they were having a protest there about the right to vote. And Jimmy Lee was there with his parents and grandparents, and also James Orange was there. And James Orange was locked up in jail. And Jimmy Lee was concerned about his safety. He went down there with a group of people, and not as a riot, just to check on James, but it kind of turned into that kind of situation. And Jimmy Lee went into a restaurant with his grandparents and parents to kind of like protect them. And he was shot inside the restaurant, and he later died. So that was really the spark. But Marion, Alabama is also the county where Ms. King was born, and also Andy Young's first wife, Jean Young. She passed away with an illness, and Andy remarried later on. Next picture, please. This is Jean Young on the far, Jean Charles Young on the far left, and that's Ms. King along with Dr. King. Next picture, please. This is, and after the shooting and the murder of Jimmy Lee Jackson, the Selma campaign sort of got underway. And Dr. King put out a call for ministers, people of faith, to come join him in Selma. And these are two Unitarians. I knew Dick Leonard on the left. He wrote a book about the call that Dr. King asked the ministers to come down of all faiths to join him in the Selma campaign. And this is James Reeb on the right. And James Reeb was in D.C. He came down. He was leaving the church in D.C., All Souls Church in D.C., to go to All Souls in Boston. But he ended up in Selma in between that trip. And one night they were going out to dinner. And behind James Reeb, you see Minister Abernathy singing. So Dick Leonard was asked to join them for dinner, but he didn't. So after James Reeb and some gentlemen he was with left a restaurant, they were attacked. And James Reeb was killed. So he was the first casualty of the Selma campaign. Next picture, please. This is a little out of sequence, but Viola Liuzzo was a Unitarian out of Detroit, and she came down to join the movement. And she was transporting people from the Montgomery March in and out of Montgomery by car, and she was killed. So the two murders that happened during that campaign were white Unitarians. She had 5 children. She had a very good friend, a black lady, who ended up being the surrogate mother for her children after her passing. Next photograph, please. This is John Lewis, the late John Lewis, and the late Jose Williams. When I worked in Maynard's office, Maynard Jackson's office, Equitable Building, right on the corner of Peachtree Street and Auburn Avenue, it was the Equitable Building. John Lewis's office was in there. He was, by this time, he was a U.S. congressperson. And so I would see him on occasions when he was in town. And Jose Williams I knew because when I sold insurance for Atlanta Life, I was his insurance agent. I was also Julian Bond's insurance agent. Back then, Atlanta Life was a debit company, so you went by the homes to collect pretty much every week, or they pay you by the month. So I was sort of like pretty much entrenched in the culture of Atlanta, because when I first moved there, I didn't have a car. So I had to pretty much walk my debit on foot. But Jose Williams was quite a guy. He was from Savannah. Both his parents were blind. And he ended up, going to school and working his way through, and he was a chemist. And he left his federal government job to join the movement. And he was a character. And John Lewis was a very serious young person. I met him, he was much older. But they were like fire and ice, There was a story I think is somewhat true. They said they would send Jose into a town to stir things up, and they'd send Andy into town to calm things down, and then Dr. King would come in town. So the next slide, please. This is the first march in Selma with John Lewis and Jose leading the way. Edmund Pettus Bridge. There's a voting museum down there now. I visited there once when I was down in Selma. I've never been to any of the marches that happened after this. This is the first march. The next slide, please. During the Selma campaign, Dr. King decided to take a break from that and go to the next county, Wilcox County, and that's where Gee's Bend is located. He went there twice. The first time he went there was at night. He went to Calvary Church, and it was storming, it was raining, and he gave his first speech. They didn't think he was coming, but he went. This is his second visit to Gee's Bend. And he met outside the church because it was rumored that the church would be bombed if there were people inside the church. So Dr. King decided to give his talk outside, and that's what he's doing now. This is the second visit to Gee's Bend. And there was an SCLC office in Gee's Bend as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this is kind of, we're ahead of ourselves a little bit on this, but you see James Orange in the back, the big guy with the glasses, and you see Mrs. King. Trying to see who else you see back there. I think here you can kind of see Harry Belafonte's wife right here with the long hair, and this looks like James Lawson right here. I'm not sure if that's him or not, but it looks like James Lawson. But this is the two mules, Ada and Belle. And this is the story that James Orange told me about the two mules. That Dr. King always said he wanted mules to pull his case on if something ever happened to him. He didn't want horses, he didn't want limousines, nothing fancy. So when Dr. King was murdered, everything was rush, and they were trying to find mules in Georgia. But most of the farmers that they contacted wanted them to pay for the uses of the mules. And Jose was totally against that. So the people in Gee's Bend, since they had an SCLC office there, they said, we have mules here. And they found the two mules there from a local black farmer. And they had to transport the mules into Atlanta. But to transport livestock, you have to have a permit, especially across state line. So Lester Maddox and George Wallace, who were two governors of the two states, Lester Maddox of Georgia, George Wallace of Alabama, they had to come to terms and let the mules through. There was a holdup there briefly, but the mules got through. And so, the next slide, please. This is another picture of the mules. I'm going to point out a few people. I pointed out James Lawson. I pointed out James Orange before this him. That's Andy Young.
Speak on the mic, because otherwise people can't hear you on Zoom.
The mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you step away from the mic, they can't hear you online.
Oh,
So what
okay.
I'm going to invite you to do is while you're pointing out,
Okay.
to take that right over, but
Okay.
don't get too close to this because you might
Okay.
get a little feedback.
All right. Okay.
And then when you're done pointing, I'll take that back out of your way.
Okay. Good. Right here, you can see. This is Benjamin Hooks. He was head of the NAACP at this time. This is Andy Young. There's Jesse Jackson. I think that's James Bevan. Bevan's right here. You can't see with the top of his head. And there's Jose again. And these gentlemen here are from Gee's Bend. They were the mule guys. The wagon, Jose Williams commandeered the wagon from a I might want to hold on to it.
All right, I'll stand
Okay.
to the side and turn
Okay.
it on.
Jose Williams commandeered the wagon from in front of an antique store in Atlanta. He just went and just took it. And he carried it, back, and he started painting it, So after the funeral procession was over, he went back to return it, and the owner said, no, you can keep it. you can have it, you know. So, but that was something Jose did. The next photo, please. These are quilts from Gee's Bend. These are the women, and the quilts has a story of their own. When Dr. King visited there, the women started a Dr. King cooperative. You know, they were making quilts and trying to sell the quilts, but they never saw themselves as artists. They saw themselves as just the people at Gee's Bend are, you know, were called the blacks in other parts of Alabama were called the Gee's Bend people. When they would go there, they said, we're going to Africa. They thought they were the most primitive of all the people in Alabama because they kept their customs, and they originally came out of North Carolina. Most of the folks in Gee's Bend have the same last name, is Petaway. And they would march from North Carolina to Gee's Bend, right down the river, by a farmer, a white plantation owner. And that's how they got there. Well, they basically came out of, you know, North Carolina. And it was a very, very challenged area, but they made a way out of no way. And when Dr. King came there and got them, in, you know, and interested in voting and standing up for themselves, they had to go to the county seat, which is Camden. And to get to Camden, you had to use the ferry. And once that started happening, they shut the ferry down. So the Gee's Benders had to walk around to get to Camden, and still they had problems registering to vote. And the ferry just started back a few years ago. But these ladies never saw themselves as artists. They saw themselves as just not throwing nothing away. One woman talked about when her husband passed away, she took all his old clothes and made a quilt out of them. So whenever she got lonely for him, she would just wrap herself in the quilt. So there were stories like that. Years later, Jane Fonda's daughter and her husband moved into Gee's Bend and made a documentary of the culture and also of the quilts. And these ladies really do not like flying. So when they travel the country, it's mainly by bus. And most major museums in the United States have had a Gee's Bend quilt exhibit. Is there more slides?
I think that's it.
Oh, you think that's it? Okay. Well, so the story fell on me, and I called my agent because I was doing children's books at this time. I was on the advisory board at Emory University, rare books and manuscripts. And so I told her the story, and she sort of got excited about it, and she wanted to confirm it. Once we did that, through James Orange, we went with it. And the publisher's out of Boston, Candlewick Press. And I made a gospel play about it, and I carried it a few places. And when James Orange passed away, they had his service at Morehouse College. And I went there, and it was, I guess, one of the coldest days I've experienced. The second coldest day I ever experienced in Atlanta was at Jose Williams' funeral, which was at Ebenezer, the new Ebenezer Church. With James Orange service, they had the mayor and they had Congress people, but they had a delegation from South Africa. And Andy Young spoke, and he said that James Orange was much more popular and well-known in South Africa than he was, because James Orange was a real union person. And that was quite a thing. So he was, I think the young lady here knew James Orange to some degree, and he was a family guy. You know, he could tell you between Atlanta and Alabama, the best soul food restaurants, you know, along the way. So he was just a real special guy. He was very close to Minister Lowry. they would have these meetings every Tuesday at Atlanta Life Building. They're called the People's Agenda. And they would have it every Tuesday. And Minister Lowry would lead it, and James Orange would be there as his right-hand person. And they would do these talks and hearing about what complaints are coming in from various parts of the community to act on those things. But that was my experience in Atlanta. I fell into this, it's like a walking museum. I mean, you go to the grocery store, you will see, and they never had bodyguards, even after all the tragedies of Dr. King's mother getting killed and Andy, not Andy, but Dr. King and others being harassed, and Jose, they would just be out and about, just like regular folks. I guess they were regular folks in a lot of ways, but it was also, they was internationally known. And they've been through so many battles and wars, and but you see them out and about just like it was John Lewis, and I mean, it goes on and on. Mrs. King, Mrs. Lowry, Mrs. Abernathy. It was quite an experience for me seeing these people out and about. And so Atlanta was, I guess it's very different now because they're all gone. But during that time, they were still here. Vernon Jordan is from Atlanta. He fought in the Civil Rights Movement in a different way, I guess. He was integrating the corporate boardrooms. But this is, you know, my experience of being there. I never will forget it. Like I say, you know, they're pretty much all gone. And I can take a few questions if you have some questions about anything.